Hi guys, welcome to all my tier 3 members. You guys are my grateful members, or that's how I call it, and I'm so grateful that you guys are here. I really wanted to say thank you for being my members, and I really wanted to make something special, a technique that I haven't shown yet in my regular channel. I have used the magicals like you're going to see, but stay tuned because I'm using the Stamperia Anqtiquing paste and you're going to love how it looks. I just was really happy with the results. So let's get started. When I started this project, I knew I wanted to use the horse mold from Zuri. It's a beautiful horse called Majesty Warrior, but I couldn't find the right sized canvas. The 5x7 was too small and the 8x10 was too big, so I decided to take my mixed media board by Canson. It's an art board, and what I did is I cut it to the right size that I wanted. It comes in an 8x10, and I basically cut it much shorter. That way I could fit exactly the size that I wanted for my horse. I cut it with an X-Acto knife to make it really fit where I wanted it. Then I primed everything with heavy white gesso. Although the board is white, I really felt that I wanted to prep everything to have it ready for when I'm adding the magical powders. As you might know, my daughter is obsessed with horses. She lives and breathes horses. If she could own a barn and live on a horse farm, she would. And that's what she wants to do when she grows up. So when I saw that Zuri mold with the horse, I knew I had to make a project for her that she could hang in her room. I casted the horse out of resin. I used amazing casting resin, and then I primed it as well with the white gesso. So it will be ready for the paint. When she saw the canvas, she was so surprised. She loved it so much. I wanted to make a background for the horse to make it look as if it's running in a field of hay. So I took a stencil from the crafter's workshop that has exactly that texture, and I will list all the products below in the description area. And using some texture paste, I started adding the texture onto the background. I added it in certain areas, but made sure that the hay has different heights. I didn't want it all to look even. So some areas were shorter and some areas were higher. I added some in certain areas and then I heat set them so I could add more in the center because I didn't want the stencil to ruin the paste if I'm adding it on top. Once the stenciled area is thoroughly dried, we're gonna get into my favorite part, which is adding color. I am using two Lindy's magical colors, the Edelweiss green and the Bayou gold. I'm starting with the green and I sprayed the background with water and then I started adding the green on the wheat stalks. The method is to use very little bit of powder and blend it with the water that is already on the background. And then you can add more water to create movement. The water will help blend everything and move everything around. And you can also use a paintbrush to do that. Once I was finished with the green, I started adding the gold. If you look at hay, it usually has the green and golden color right when it's drying up. So the hay starts off as green and then there is gold in it as well. And when you look at it in the fields, as hay dries at different times, you will see the two tones mixing together. And I really love the look that it gives. A few years ago, we took a picture for my daughter and we did it in some fields that had exactly these two colors and they looked so beautiful, especially with the blue sky. It just looked beautiful. And that's why I decided that I'm going to be adding a little bit of blue on the background. So I just haphazardly used the blue, a little bit of powder, and just mixed it in the background. But I didn't want it to be fully blue. I wanted it to look as if it's blended, like watercolor blended with the sky. I heat set this first layer really well because Sometimes when you're working with watercolor-like products, they tend to be lighter once they are dried, as you can see here. So what I did is I re-wet everything, and then I started adding a second layer of green and gold. And that really helped bring in all that beautiful hay color to the background. I'm going to add some music here so you can watch and relax while I'm coloring. If you don't want to watch this part because it's the second layer, just go ahead and skip it to the next part so that way you can see what I did next. But I really wanted to include this so you can see the darkness that it creates afterwards. To paint the horse, I used 3 colors from the Sweet Treats collection from Lindy's Magical Colors. I started with the Creme Brulee Cream, which are very light creme brulee kind of color, and they have really cool names, so I really loved adding it to the background. But I realized it was too light, so I went with the next one, which is the Milk Chocolate Brown, and started adding it in certain areas of the horse. I basically just wet the horse and just painted it with my paintbrush. It kind of looks like a latte if we go by the color. And finally, I decided to add the darker color in certain areas to just create a few darker areas on the horse because I wanted the horse to be brown. This color is called Dark Chocolate Truffle, and you can really kind of see how dark it is, almost like a chocolate truffle. It was perfect to create this horse with it. Now, a good technique to do is that if you added too much paint or too much color, you can always use a baby wipe to just wipe off the excess. It really helps because these are water-based colors, almost like watercolors, so you can easily remove things. Then I brought in the gold that I had used before and just added a few very small highlights in certain areas to create a nice highlighted golden effect on the horse itself. I glued the horse to the background using 3D gloss gel. I could have used basically any type of gel. Could be matte, could be the heavy gel. It didn't really matter. You can even use regular glue. I just wanted to make sure that it sticks well to the background. The key to adding gel is to make sure that after you do, you take a small paintbrush and you remove all the little blobs around things because otherwise they will dry up that way. Even if it dries clear, you really see the little blobs everywhere if you don't remove them with a paintbrush. Now it was time to add shadows because everything looked very flat. And to do that, I wanted to use a new product that I had gotten, which is the Antique Cream Paste by Stamperia. And what it is, it's an oil-based brown color, almost like burnt amber. All you do is you add it everywhere on the project. You basically cover the whole project with the brown color. It's a technique that my friend Adonis does, and it's a really, really cool way of adding shadows after you finish the project. And don't worry, the whole thing is not going to end up brown. The great thing about it is because it's oil based and you're adding it over watercolor paint, it will resist it and it will be easily removed. I mean, if you do let it dry, it will just stay like that. But what you're going to see me do is remove it right away. And you can do this over acrylic paint, over watercolor, or any water-based product. So I am just covering every single inch of this canvas. Once that's done, you start removing the oil paint with a baby wipe or some kind of wet rag. You continue removing, and as you can see, the brown color stays inside all the grooves and the shadowed areas of the canvas, and you remove basically wherever you have highlights. So in a sense, works backwards from how we think to add products. Instead of adding shadows first and then highlights, we're adding the highlights first and then ending with the shadows. And the more you remove, the more you're going to see the definition of the background and the focal point. It really came out really cool, and this horse really stands out. Then I took some brown archival ink, and using a dauber, I edged the borders of the canvas to just really frame it all together. I really find that really helps bring it all in. Finally, I took the gold color again and made a little bit of a gold mixture on my mat so I could add some splatters. I added some splatters in the sky area because I really wanted to kind of make it look like fireflies. And it really helps to bring it all together. You know how much I love splatters and how it makes a project look really finished when you apply them. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned some new techniques, because I really feel that I want to show you things that I maybe don't show always on my channel because they're a little bit more complicated, especially with the antiquing cream. A lot of people might not understand how that works, and I feel that I can show more technique-based stuff for my members. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And have an amazing day. I love you guys.